Hey everybody, this is Emily Josephine, and today I want to do something I've never done before, and I want to address an email I got recently from somebody who's, I guess, been watching my videos and had a couple of questions. And the main question that this gentleman had was, is our earth-sheltered house still our dream house? Do we wish we would have done things differently? And by the way, to that person who sent that email asking about other videos and photos, well, I'm pointing right there up here to a link to my playlist. It's called Earth Sheltered Living, and you'll find videos of every step of the build of this house and all the other videos I've made regarding different issues and different things we've done. Building the interior walls is one that you asked about. Yes, I do have a video on building the interior walls. I have a video on the tour, touring the inside of the house, so please check that out. It's all there. But let's talk about, has this turned out to be our dream house? Well, I mean, the fact is there isn't really any such thing as a dream house. It's kind of like a dream life. You know, we don't really get any of that until we're in heaven, because only God knows what's perfect for us. And here on earth, we just have to struggle and figure out and go one step at a time, and we change over time. Most of my ideals have just been shot down since we moved to here. I'll be frank, I realized that there is no such thing as an ideal life. You cannot have an ideal life as long as you're here on earth. You need to lower your expectations, because if you don't, you're going to get frustrated and depressed like I did. Ideal house. My ideal house was an earth ship, built with used tires, not brand new tires bought at a shop, but tires that were just taking up space in a landfill. Originally, we were going to contract with somebody. We had paid somebody a decent amount of money to come out here and do a consultation about the earth ship that he was going to build. And if I could remember his last name, his first name is Mark, watch out for him. And I can't remember his last name. I don't want to look it up. But a guy claiming to build earth ships, and his name is Mark, and he was in the Texas area at the time. Stay away from him. Yeah, I mean, long story short, he screwed us, if you don't mind me using that phrase. But the reason I wanted an earth ship was because it's totally eco-friendly materials. And, this guy supposedly had a way that quickly rammed the earth into the tires. It wouldn't take nearly as long. He had a mechanical thing that he'd invented. So yeah, an earth ship uses, it's totally eco-friendly with materials. It doesn't use any new lumber or concrete like this house. And it's also buried, and so, great thermal mass and yada, 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 all that stuff. That is my ideal house. A house that's, very energy efficient and uses as much eco-friendly materials as possible. So, I guess long story short, too late. No, this earth-sheltered house was not my ideal house. Until it was only in the last probably 6 months that I've been able to kind of drop the resentment that we used all this concrete. Concrete is not a sustainable material at all. Not only does it use the main thing is it uses a ton of water, but there are other issues with it. I can't name them all right now, but water and the actual burial of an earth-sheltered house, and this would be true of an earth ship too, it does require a lot of water. We had to hook up to the grid because we needed thousands of gallons of water to water down the dirt. And in the ideal world, it would have rained every time our digger guy, or the guy who was burying the house, every time he had buried, put up a couple feet of dirt, if we would have had an inch of rain every time that happened, that would have saved us water. So the burial wasn't really the issue with me. It's more the concrete. It's not a sustainable material. So in that way, you know, no, it's not really my dream house. We also do not have ceilings and doors on our bedrooms because it is an earth-sheltered house. It needs constant ventilation. The ceiling fan needs to be going around all the time and ventilating all the rooms. The bathroom does have a ceiling, but we leave the doors open when nobody's in there or when there's not a stink, you know, for the ventilation to come in. But the bedrooms do not. And the problem with that is there's nowhere to hide in the house. If somebody else is making a noise that you don't want to hear, like somebody's playing a video game or watching a DVD and you don't want to hear it, there's nowhere else in the house you can go to get away from that. If I want to listen to music, you know, and somebody else doesn't want to hear it, well, they have to leave the house, which isn't always possible, you know, depending on what the weather's doing. So ideal, no. You know, dream house, not really. Okay, there are issues with the actual building of the house itself, and you know, and the whole issue of open bedrooms and not being able to escape, and you know, and that was our choice. Now we could have had a much bigger house built with bigger bedrooms, and each bedroom had their own ceiling fan, and that would have been a different story. Or we could have done a whole house ventilation or something like that. However, like I was saying, there is no real dream house. Every kind of house you build is going to come with pros and cons. You have to decide what your priorities are. You have to look at the list of pros and cons and decide, well, are the pros significantly heavier than the cons? Can I live with the cons? And truthfully, yeah, we can live with the cons. It's really not a big deal that the bedrooms are open, you know, basically the whole house is open. Yeah, it gets frustrating sometimes, but who doesn't get frustrated in whatever house? Whenever you're living with somebody else, frustrations will happen because, you know, they're not you. And thank God, you know, who wants two of you? The world's a better place because there's not two of me. Trust me. Energy efficiency is the one thing I love, and I've done, pointing to a link again, I've done a couple of videos on that, the energy efficiency of this house. But yeah, that's one thing, you know, the great thing is reduced energy bills, and not just reduced because it's a small house. And like I said in a previous video, if our earth-sheltered house were a lot larger, we'd probably not even need to have air conditioning and heat. We'd still need a dehumidifier though. And that's the last point I want to mention, talking about a dream house. My dream house is one that we could leave for a month or two or even longer to go travel wherever we wanted and not have to worry about it. What do I mean not have to worry about it? This is an earth-sheltered house. It's buried with dirt. It's basically underground except for the south side. So it's buried on all sides except the south. And what does that mean? And we live in a semi-humid climate. This means the humidity is relatively high. Average annual humidity here is 74%. So if we ever decide to take a really long trip, we're basically going to have to hire somebody to come in once a day or twice a day and turn on the dehumidifier, turn it off. Because we need to make sure we keep the humidity down so mold does not grow. That is my biggest issue. Bigger than the concrete not being a sustainable material is the whole, we're kind of trapped. I know that's a negative way to say it. I do enjoy this house. I like the size and I like the energy efficiency, but I feel kind of trapped, like we've limited ourselves because of the whole mold issue. If you don't keep the humidity down, mold will go, And yes, we could keep the dehumidifier. No, we couldn't. That's the problem. The dehumidifier bucket has to be dumped, and I'm pointing over there because that's where it is. The dehumidifier bucket has to be dumped when it's full. So we couldn't just leave it on and, you know, let it cycle through. We'd still have to have somebody check every day or two or three and dump the bucket and run it again. So that's probably my biggest issue. And I'm going to go back to burying. This was another thing the gentleman asked in the video. Well, is it better to, better thermal mass underground or on top of the ground, and well, ours is basically, we had a little bit of a hill that we were able to dig into. They were able to dig out 4 feet in the back. So we're like 4 feet underground, but the rest of it, I mean, I would basically say we're mainly on the surface and then buried. And the gentleman asked me, well, what do you think about the thermal mass compared to an actual underground house? Well, I mean, it depends on how far underground you go. And if you decide to build an underground house, by the way, there are a lot of you need to get a structural engineer in there so you don't like have eventually a roof fall down on your head and kill you, which I heard happen once to somebody who had built an earth-sheltered house that was not concrete. I think he had a wooden roof. But yeah, I mean, it depends on how, I mean, we could have put more dirt on the sides and on top and given it more thermal mass. It depends on how much you bury it and or how far underground you go. So I just want to throw that out there for the guy who emailed me. Anything else? That's basically it. So, is this our dream house? No, but the pros outweigh the cons. Jerry and I have, discussed it, and yeah, we both have decided that the pros of this house definitely outweigh the cons. We're glad we made this decision to build an earth-sheltered house. But, oh, one more thing. Not only for the gentleman who is in Florida, he says, but anybody else who's living in a semi-humid climate, or excuse me, what it's called is humid subtropical. Pardon me, not semi-humid. It's not semi-humid, it's pretty humid. Humid subtropical. If you live in a humid subtropical climate like southeast Oklahoma or Florida, do not plan to ever be able to live without electricity. If that is your dream, to live in a house where you don't run any electricity at all, it's not going to happen in an earth-sheltered house in a humid subtropical climate unless you're willing for mold to grow all over the concrete. So there you go, my spiel about dream houses and ideal worlds. Don't exist, but you do what's on your heart after looking at the pros and cons. Thanks a lot for watching. Thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and please share it. Thanks for watching. Remember to help someone in need this week.